Chapter 6, General Introduction. We learned in the first two chapters of this tractate that proper partitions must enclose an area before carrying it can be permitted. The next four chapters relate to the rabbinic prohibitions of carrying between houses, courtyards, and alleys, even when they are all properly enclosed, and to remedies the rabbis instituted to permit such carrying, Eruvei Chatzeros and Shetufei Mevuas. Eruvei Chatzeros. King Solomon and the sages of his generation prohibited carrying between an individual's house and a courtyard shared by other houses, even though the courtyard is enclosed on all sides and is a full-fledged private domain, Rishus HaYachid. The reason for this is as follows. A house is the private place of one person, while a courtyard is under the joint ownership and use of all the courtyard's residents, which makes it look like a public domain, Rishus HaRabim. Since carrying between a home and a courtyard could be confused with carrying between a private domain and a public domain, the sages prohibited it. The sages provided a way to remove this prohibition. This is known as Eruvei Chatzeros. When the residents of a courtyard join in an Erev, we view them as a single group that owns all of the houses of the courtyard together. The Erev is made by collecting a loaf of bread before Shabbos from each of the dwellings, which opens into that courtyard, and placing the loaves in one of those houses. This symbolizes that all of the courtyard's residents reside in the house that contains the bread. The courtyard can be viewed as serving only the one house rather than several, and it no longer resembles a public domain. See Tosfos Yom Tov to Mishnah 6:1 from Rambam. Shetufei Mevuos. Just as it is forbidden to carry from a house into a courtyard without an Eruvei Chatzeros, it is similarly forbidden to carry from a courtyard into an alley into which two or more courtyards open. The reasoning for this is the same as above. The courtyard is a relatively private area serving a small number of households, while the alley is used by the households of all the courtyards opening into it. Therefore, carrying between a courtyard and an alley also has the appearance of carrying between a private domain and a public domain. The sages thus prohibited carrying from any privately owned area to a jointly owned area, whether from an individual's house to a courtyard or from a courtyard owned by a limited group of individuals to an alley shared by others. Here, too, the sages provided a way to remove this prohibition. This is known as Shetufei Mevuos. The Shetufei Mevuos is formed by collecting food from all of the alley's residences and placing it in one of the courtyards in the alley. The Shetufei Mevuos joins all the courtyards of the alley together into one courtyard, in the same way that the Eruvei Chatzeros merges together all the homes of the courtyard together. Abandonment of rights. If one of the residents of a courtyard forgot to join in the Eruvei Chatzerot, he prohibits its use to all the other residents. Once Shabbos begins, it is too late for him to join in the Erev. The only solution is for that resident to abandon his rights in the courtyard for that Shabbos. Once he abandons his rights, the courtyard is the sole domain of the members of the Erev. This permits these residents to carry between their houses and the courtyard. Renting. An idolater who lives in a courtyard also restricts it under certain circumstances. However, neither of the methods mentioned above can remove that restriction. The only way to remove the restriction caused by the presence of the idolater is for one of the Jewish residents to rent from him his rights to the courtyard.